Good evening. This is David. Hope y'all are doing well. Wanted to join you guys again for the podcast. This time we're going to be talking about Earth-related extraterrestrial beings. This is in the series of the, first of all, this is the r.e.a.l, Removing Ego, Adding Light podcast. Today I'm going to be enjoying, just so y'all know, who's not a sponsor, but just want to let y'all know, this is r.e.a.l's Pale Ale from the Oscar Blues Brewery in Austin, Texas. And, this podcast has different sections on it. This was chapter 2, or volume 2, I think you'd probably call it, which is guidance on the truth about extraterrestrials. So, the first video on that was on 2.1, which was on Draco reptilians, and this will be 2.2, which is on other beings, Earth-related beings. So the first thing to do is to give you a little bit of a disclosure and disclaimer to, if you're not familiar with my content, and if you're not familiar with content regarding extraterrestrial beings, the first thing I would do is to look into the other podcasts that I have. And I have one in the first chapter, which is called 1.1, and that's on remote viewing. That is a much easier way to start, because that's how I started with my journey into spirituality. And being red-pilled and understanding the real world. So just my advice. And beyond that, you could also check out the 2.1 Draco Reptilian video. So that has over 100 views on YouTube, which is a lot for me. I'm just starting out, but I also have pretty good intuition that I've already been canceled by YouTube. The only thing I can suggest there, because there's other people that have talked about Draco and continue to talk about Draco and have not been canceled, is that they don't title their videos Draco Reptilian. And I do. But the reason I do that is to be honest and to help people. And, it started to grow and people started to find it. And then it got canceled. And you kind of got to ask yourself, well, why in the world would that be the case? There's tons and tons of videos about lizard people on YouTube. Like a lot of professionally done videos with thousands of views. And History Channel talks about lizard people and conspiracy theories. And then now you see mine, which is titled Draco Reptilians, all of a sudden be canceled at around 130 views. It creeps up, but it's only like 2 per day. It's inorganic. Whereas the first few days it was growing was organic. So anyway, not the only one. I know that's happening to a lot of people who YouTube is their livelihood, and so I feel for them. But a little note about that, I chose to stay on the platform, and the reason is because not where YouTube's at now, but where YouTube's going in the future, and Google as well, because I believe that these companies have gotten way too large for we the people to serve us, which at the end of the day they need to serve us. And so at the end of the day we are going to end up owning those companies, and so we the people will own Google and YouTube. And so to that degree I want to go ahead and stay on the platform. And even put out some content on visioning towards how do we get there to where we the people collectively do own Google, YouTube, maybe many other companies. It's looking like that they have deceived the people. They're going to have a world of hurt in the future with legislators, with litigation, with a lot of the suppression that's been going on. Guys, I don't see how we the people don't own that in the future, those companies. And for anybody who's employees of YouTube and companies like that are suppressing people like Facebook, this is an awesome time. I know there's a lot of good people in those companies. You're young, you most likely, if you have a good, healthy conscience and you're concerned about some of the things, and you're beyond the ideology of just blue and red that the world wants you to think in, then you might consider, becoming a whistleblower. You can do that. You have the power. I've gotten a lot of intuitive messages about that. And you have the power to help the people by coming out with your story. There's already been several whistleblowers, and there's only going to be many, many more. It's not a Republican Democrat thing. It's a we the people thing that is way beyond that. So get off my soapbox there and on to the podcast about Earth-related beings. So we talked in the last episode, which would have been 2.1, about the Draco reptilians and about the history of those beings, about how they have been here for many, many hundreds of thousands of years and have worked with shadow government to control us from the shadows. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but there's a lot of testimonials from whistleblowers about them as well on the moon and working through the moon. These other beings that exist, and we're going to go through them one by one, in some cases work with the Draco reptilians, and in some cases they don't. These are beings that are more commonly associated, we are more commonly associated with, and that have a relationship with us. So I haven't discussed yet how the planet works, how the rest of the world works, the universe, and our guardians and much. I expect that to come later. But just know that from what I've seen and from what I've heard and my intuition, beings cannot just come here from another planet and take over Earth like you've seen in a lot of sci-fi movies for 50 years. It's not possible. If it were possible, it would have already happened. When you start to see the testimonials of the secret space program whistleblowers and start to realize just how many races there are out there, and many of them, well, not many, but some of them very evil and like the dark forces in Star Wars, would come and conquer us for resources, but they're just not allowed to do that. There are certain races that have had a history with us. Those are the ones that are allowed, whether they're benevolent or malevolent or some combination of it. So those are the ones we're going to be talking about today. The whistleblowers who have talked about these, the ones I'm going to focus on include Jason Rice, who was a secret space program whistleblower who went on many planets for expeditions through the Mars Germans control. And those who were in collaboration with the Draco reptilians is what Jason's testimony has said. And it described insectoid beings on many planets, reptilian beings, and many other types of beings. But another whistleblower who I've mentioned before is Corey Good, who has hours and hours of testimony on the internet, YouTube. I believe his website is fearbeingalliance.com. I'm not sure if Jason has a website. There's also Emery Smith, who has mentioned working with insectoids, and as well as intuitives, as well as extraterrestrial experiencers, people who've been claimed to have been abducted, which is in the thousands of people. And there's a few readings that I've gotten, which we're going to get into. So basically, the insectoids is the first race that we're really going to talk about. Now, the insectoids, they're also called the mantids, and there's another group that's sometimes called in the insectoids that are the ant people. which I'll just touch on real briefly, but they have a connection to the Earth. The ant people are somehow connected to the old power structures of the past and the Draco reptilians, but they're also connected, I believe, to the Hopi tribe, or it might be another tribe in the Southwest that traditionally they say there's ant people that live underground. And during different, this is what the people and the tribal people say in their culture, that during certain calamities, natural disasters, those ant people have brought them down into the ground for protection. Interesting. And now the other, the mantids are more like a praying mantis looking being. They have many different insectoid type races, but the mantids are the ones that are most associated with planet Earth. And so those, when we refer to insectoids, we'll be talking about the mantids. In one of my earlier videos, I talked about how I could see when I started to open my third eye, close my first two eyes and open my third eye, which I would do on my lunch break. I would see mantid-looking beings that looked like they were observing me from a computer screen type environment. Okay. And so the first being we're going to talk, as I mentioned, when I say insectoids, I'm really talking about the mantid beings. Okay, guys, I'm sorry, I'm not prepared. I think I'm going to have to skip the part. I knew I did have something on insectoid beings, but I'm going to have to come back to that. I apologize. But I can tell you these beings, from what I do know about these beings, they are not malevolent and they are not necessarily benevolent. They do not have the emotional structures that we do. They don't have that whole emotional complex and mechanism like we do. And so it probably makes it hard for us to relate as beings. But the ones who work with the Dracos, you might say that they're evil. But they in fact think that they're helping us. And that's what my intuition got, if I can ever find this reading, was that they do believe that they are actually helping us. So you might say, how do they believe that they're helping us, or how could they possibly be helping us? It's because the Draco are allowed to be here by our angels. And the reason for that is because of our own spiritual growth and development. Because although the Draco are an evil species, we can learn from them and through our pain and suffering, as you know, in the biblical references to the devil, he tests us and he challenges us. And through that darkness, we can find the light. Now, the insectoids have certain lines that they will not cross in that regard. Certain things that the Draco will do that the insectoids will not. And in fact, when Corey Goode was described as being on the surface of planet Earth during a negotiation with the Draco, in which the old power structures were there, the Draco reptilians were there, and these mantid beings were there as well. And what happened was the mantid beings were in a loose formation, whereas the Draco reptilian were in a tight formation, showing that they were with the Draco, but they were not ordered necessarily by the Draco. They collaborate with them, and it's more of a factor of they're getting paid to do a job. That's kind of how to think of these beings. From their perspective, they don't have the emotional complex that we do. But Emery Smith has also described working with these beings, and actually found this. Okay, so here we go. And this will kind of describe what I was going to say with Emory. Insectoids working with Draco on a contractual agreement for services. They're doing a job. These insectoids are not like you, but they're not the prime directive. It is the Draco telling them what to do. Draco respect insectoids, and the insectoids have boundaries they will not cross in the harming of humanity. In their eyes, they are helping humanity, as I mentioned. Otherwise, why would the angels allow it? From the Draco perspective, they can only see world domination. They don't resonate with the idea of helping us. That's why the insectoid connection is so important. They are not a threat to you. So that's the key thing, is you might start seeing insectoids in your third eye. A lot of people during DMT have felt like insectoids are working on their head. And in some cases, those might even be benevolent insectoids, and they might be helping you. So the key message that I've gotten from Spirit is not to fear these beings. Okay, so that kind of covers insectoids on our planet. The next being I'm going to talk about is, so I believe we're going to jump straight into the Zeta. So the Zeta Reticuli, otherwise known as the tall grays. Now you have another being that is called the small grays. And to distinguish between those two, small grays are really a biotic robot kind of thing. Think of R2D2 or C3PO if they had a living skin, but otherwise were robotic and would do certain tasks. And so a lot of child abductees say that they see these small grays, and that they are used apparently in these abductions because they have a large face and large eyes to kind of make it look like a child. They are a child, and so they're more approachable for the from the children versus a the Draco reptilian, for example, a big lizard in your room. And anyway, those are, they also have actually have a suit on, the gray suit, and there's just so much testimony about them. It's very specific from going back so many years. The most common extraterrestrial, the one you see in Roswell, but they're not green, they're gray, and they actually have been said to have, I believe Corey Good has testified, a lizard slit pupils in their eyes. What they have on is actually a suit and a helmet, and once that comes off, they have kind of pinkish skin, I believe, or a reptilian type skin, and slit pupils. Okay, now the tall grays are from Zeta Reticuli constellation, and here's what the message I've gotten from Spirit about them. This is to warn you that you have been manipulated. The Zeta have done so by obtaining your DNA. Beyond that, the real concern is the type of ET you're dealing with. Is an Orion, this is off on Orion. If it is an Orion entity, they will attempt to disguise their message in end-time scenario to lure you. Those away from the light may fall for this. We're not going to really talk about Orion reptilians here, but they tend to ally with the Draco. Zeta Reticuli may also do this. So they may also lure you, attempt to lure you in end-time scenario. So come on to our spaceship, that kind of thing. They may also try to do this. Either of these races can then do with a human whatever they wish, as you have agreed to it. If you walk on the ship, you walk on the ship. Draco work with these groups. So really not much on that I've heard on the beings known as Zeta Reticuli. However, I can tell you from other testimonials that they are in fact very dangerous beings that work with the Draco reptilians, and have been the main proponents behind the DNA experimentation and abductions on the planet. and were the race that we agreed to, not we, the corrupt government, who does not stand for us and is illegal, sold us into that slavery and servitude, even though they didn't have the power to do so. Okay, now we're going to jump to Nordics. Nordics are versatile multiple races of people. They come from, I really don't know enough to say that they come from Andromeda. I've also heard that they come from the Pleiades, and so I can't confirm. When I say Pleiades, I distinguish that as Pleiadian. Now, Nordic has more of Andromedan galaxy, and they have tend to have be very tall. They call them the tall whites, and have blonde hair, and have been working with our government for many years. They have been both benevolent and malevolent versions. Some of them do work with the Draco, but many of them do work with humanity in our ascension process. Just looking at a face that looks like a Nordic, like a tall blonde person, almost like from Sweden or Finland, but in some cases they can be 7 feet tall. They could be deceiving. So there's even been sayings that, abductees would say that they saw a Nordic face, a Nordic person, smiling at them and welcoming them into the ship. So was that a friendly ship that they were welcome to, or was that just a pawn to lure them on board? Okay, so here's what I got about Nordics. Nordic energy is multifaceted. You need to understand that they are generally of the light through the Andromedan Council, but there are deceivers who can use a Nordic appearance to pervert the look. So never trust the look as someone to help you. It can be a great end times trap. Do you think a 10-foot reptilian will ask you to get on a ship for your protection? No. A Nordic-looking species will be doing that. Once you're on, you've made your bed and you must lie in it. Wow. So there you go. And plus, understand the fact that there are of the reptilian race, there are shapeshifters, and many different races have shapeshifters. Some of them do not have the technology to be, if they were videotaped, you would see who it really was. But when our eyes see them, they have an ability to do some kind of Jedi mind trick to where we think they are who they want us to think, and they get trained on this. So. Okay, now we're going to jump into Pleiadians. This is a race of also blonde people, generally, but from the Pleiades, and we have an ancient bond with them. Now, we have their DNA partially, as we do most of these beings that we're talking about. And here's what I got. To understand Pleiadian energy, please know that their species is truly here to help you, but it has been challenging for them. They wanted to help us in the 70s and 80s. The Andromedans came in and said, you guys have not been doing your job. The Andromedans are more neutral to us. From the Andromedan Council, they don't have the historic relationships with us that the Pleiadians do. And they said, the Pleiadians just fell down on their job, or they didn't do their job properly. So let's see if this makes sense, this reading. It has been challenging for them. Their vibration is much different than planet Earth, and need to know that they are here for you in spirit. The Draco have intimidated them many times before. It is the Nordic species that has successfully fought off Draco before, and it is because they use all of their strength and willpower. Think of David Icke as Nordic in orientation. So when you feel the energy of David Icke, you feel Nordic. The danger of Pleiadian light energy is only to the extent that you must also take time to process your shadow work on yourself, not to simply dwell in the light. In that way, you're truly getting the message in the ascension process. That's kind of important. I want to read that one more time. I guess what I'm getting is that the Pleiadian energy is a little more light, love and light, whereas the Nordic is a little more stern. David Icke does talk about love, but he is very discerning, very forceful, has a willpower, and so it's saying that David Icke is an example of Nordic energy. Now, so the danger of Pleiadian light energy, that love and light, is only to the extent that you must also take time to process your shadow work on yourself, not to simply dwell in the light. In that way, you're truly getting the message in the ascension process. We all got to do our own shadow work. That's how you get past the love and light. Oh, everything's roses and puppy dogs and marshmallows. Look, man, we are here on this planet to grow spiritually. That is going to be painful. And I hate to see such nice people, but I've seen so many in my lifetime, just super nice people. And I'd be like, why are they married to a total jerk? Or why is their mom mean to them? Okay, the reason is because we're on a path to spiritual growth. That's part of the process. That love and light is powerful, but they've got to work on their shadow work. And those people of love and light, still have shadow work that they've got to work on. And so those challenges are going to be there for them. It's just the real world. So I don't think, if I have time, I might cover one more race, but I just want to make sure I got through most of what I wanted to get through today. And I have not had really direct relationships with any of these beings as of yet. Okay, so we've talked about the tall grays, we've talked about the small grays, we've talked about the insectoids, we've talked about the Nordics. The Nordics, interestingly enough, have been related to the men in black. And if you look up Ingo Swan's testimony, you get a real good glimpse of what seems to be Nordic energy and Nordic orientation. And some other whistleblowers have even said they've worked with Nordics, and that Nordics, kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi, can mind control humans. They'll say something like, "Oh yeah, have them drive through the gate." No, we can't do that. There's guards at the gate, and they pause for a second and they say, "No, have them drive through." So they've just mind controlled, just like Obi-Wan did with the stormtroopers. Pretty fascinating, and I believe we'll have that ability in the future as well. I don't think I'm going to talk about the inner Earth Saurians, which is another reptilian species in this video. I do know a little bit about them. That's the Lacerda files, which I'll try to link to if you want more information on that. I try to leave them alone as they're inside planet Earth. I might do another video on inner Earth beings, but I don't have as much experience with them. In final note, I just would talk through a couple other entities that I'm probably not going to really touch on this channel much, but just to mention that there are ghosts. That there are demonic spirits which can enter into our body and possess people. There are friendly spirits which can be available for assistance. There are spirits and actual beings that can communicate with us telepathically. Many different types of entities that are out there. So I will give a plug for Gaia, Gaia, which is basically like the Netflix for the spiritual community. I think it's a streaming platform of $10 a month, something like that. And really good content. I have nothing bad to say about them. I was watching Gaia for about 6 months or so, and I got a lot of great information about the ascension process. They talk through, which I'm not going to really do on this channel, I don't think, talk through different dimensions, what those dimensions are, how they exist from the 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D, all the way up, and where we are growing to, because these beings that we talk about are of different dimensions. However, we will have a video on higher dimensional extraterrestrials, and that will probably be coming next, because these are the beings that I work with, and all of us can work with these beings. They are here to assist us in the ascension process. And so, you know, they are of a higher vibration. And so once you meditate and you become spiritually active, and you're not in a lower vibration where you can be deceived, then you can gain much wisdom and insight. And so that's coming forward in the next video. So I think this was good. I think we'll wrap it up there. Guys, y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.